Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to have you here with us today to learn a little bit more about credit. And hopefully you've come with some questions, some things you're wanting to learn throughout this time, and know that we are excited to talk with you more about this topic. My name is Sarah Scruggs. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist at Harvard University Employees Credit Union. And I will be helping out with the first part of our presentation, and then Migdalia Gomez, the Community Engagement Manager, will be jumping in for the second half of this presentation today, and she will be monitoring the chat, also answering some of those questions, as well as sending you relevant links in the chat as well. So those are all important things to know. Let's go over a few logistics before we get started today. We've gone ahead and muted everybody on the call, except for our two presenters, so that hopefully you can continue doing whatever you need to do during this hour. Maybe that's eating a bag of chips, maybe it is just giving yourself some space, but know that you can do anything you need to do in the background. We don't want this to ever stop you from asking questions. We think this is a really important piece of our personal finance education, that you get answers to some of those questions. So we want to make sure that you can find the questions feature and that you can hear me. Those are both two very important things. So if you could let us know where you are joining us from today in the questions feature. This feature is either going to be on the right-hand side of your screen or at the top navigation, depending on how you logged in today. So look for that questions feature and let me know where you are joining us from today. See, some of you are joining us from MGH. We've got some people at Mass Eye and Ear, McLean. Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for letting me know, and I'm glad to know all of you can hear. That's a very important thing as well. So that is where you'll ask us questions throughout this period today, if anything does come up. This presentation is being recorded. That way, if there's something that you miss or possibly want to go back to and listen to one more time, you'll be able to do that. We will be sending out an email tomorrow or Friday with this information directly to you, so that way you know exactly where to go. All of the links will be included, as well as a survey link that we ask you to fill out for us so we can continue making these a success. One of our really important things that we do is go back to look at these surveys to see what are things that you all need as MGB employees. What are things that you all need to learn about, need to learn more about, and want to know? And these surveys really help us know those things. And so we'll put the link to the survey at the end of the session as well, but please do fill this out for us if you can, just a couple minutes, so we can continue making these a success. Harvard University Employees Credit Union is a not-for-profit financial institution exclusively serving the Harvard community, and you all are a part of that community, and we are so glad to be with you all today. A couple of things that I want to point out on this slide. One is that once you are a member of the Harvard University Employees Credit Union, you are a member for life. Even if you decide to leave your job where you are now, you are still a member with us. And when you do join, people in your family are then eligible to join for membership as well, including things like parents, brother, sister, children. They are all eligible for membership once you join. And obviously, not all of us work right next to Harvard University Employees Credit Union branch. We understand that. But we want to make sure that you all know that you have access to mobile and online banking wherever you may be. Just like our members across the world have access to, there's also the shared branching network with access to over 5,000 different credit union branches across the United States, where you can bank with them just like you would with us, but you would be doing it through them, you'd get to work with them, but you'd still be a member of Harvard University Employees Credit Union. And if you have any questions about HUECU, please don't hesitate to let us know. We're more than happy to help in any way that we can. And we would be happy to talk with you more if you have questions. Getting started with our topic today, how credit works. We have given this presentation a couple of times to different groups, and one of the things we love to do is just ask about those questions that people have. And one of the very honest questions we've received recently was, actually, what is credit? And they said they were both joking and not all at the same time. And so maybe you have that question too. This is kind of one of those big questions that I think sometimes we don't realize how much it does impact us in so many different ways. That's what we're going to start out with today is how can our credit score impact us outside of just getting a loan? What are the ways that it can impact us? And this chart really shows you, this is on a $25,000 36-month car loan, but the credit score is all the way to the left. And we see as the credit scores go up, the annual percentage rate, APR, or interest rate, as you may hear it, goes down. And that's a good thing. We want our interest rate to be as low as possible so that we can save as much money as possible. And I do want to point out, of course, there are going to be some folks that are not eligible for this based on their credit score. But what's important too is that just because you're eligible doesn't mean you're going to be getting a great rate. And so that is really the impact of a credit score and what that impact can have. One thing that's important is maybe your credit isn't exactly where you want it to be right now, but you need to borrow money. That is fine, you know, if you're able to get that loan, but maybe not at the exact rate you wanted. In the future, when you get that credit score back up, you can refinance that debt. So that is something to think about in the future as well, as if you continue to work on your credit and it does get higher and higher, then you're possibly going to be able to refinance to get that lower rate. And so Migdalia is going to speak more to credit scores, and I'm going to get us started with credit reports. So what is credit at its core? It is utilizing money now and then paying it back over a period of time. There's going to be things like education loans, mortgages, car loans, credit cards. Those are all part of the credit system. What is not credit? It is not paying for something with income you have now. So it's not your checking account, it's not a savings account. Those are not credit and not included in your credit reports or credit lines. Credit is when you borrow that money, utilizing a loan, and then paying it off over time. There are three major credit bureaus who are kind of in charge of our credit reports. These are Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. And this is kind of like, I don't know, in the olden days of having multiple search engines besides just Google. These days it's just Google, I'm pretty sure, but used to we had Google, Bing, and Yahoo Answers. And each of them were run on their own, and each of them would pull up different answers. We could type in the same question, and each of them would have possibly just a few differences. This can be the case with our credit reports too, based on the bureau that is in charge of that report. Why is this? Well, because sometimes when lenders report to the credit bureaus, they don't report to all of them. Let's say that you get a car loan with a small local bank. That local bank may not have reported out to Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. They may have just reported out to Equifax. So your credit reports could see minor differences in between those three, which is why we recommend pulling one from each when you do pull your credit report, just so that you can see which has all of the things you'd like it to have on it. What are the discrepancies? What are the differences? Just so that you're more informed. What information goes on your credit report? It can be anything from information from a lender to debt collection agencies, possibly information from courts and utility companies. And so all of these things go onto your credit report, much like a transcript from classes, if you remember those. It tells you all the classes you took. Well, on your credit report, it tells you every loan, every time you've borrowed money shows up on there. This is all based on and tied to our Social Security number. These are individual credit reports. So when I got married in 2018, just because we got married and started doing our taxes together, doesn't mean that we now have the exact same credit score or credit report. We are two totally different individuals, but we have our own credit histories, and those look different. So it's all on individual consumer basis. So what can show up on our credit report? The first is going to be debt. This is the one that we probably know about the most. Okay, yes, this definitely shows up on our credit report. Things like credit card debt, auto loans, education loans, including federal student loans if you have those, also including your mortgage. And those are all important things to show up on our credit report. It shows any accounts open that you may have. This is especially great news if you have a lot of accounts in good standing, which is what you want to have for sure. So this can be a really good thing on our credit report, showing that we do have accounts open and in good standing. Anytime that you've been sent to collections, that can be added to your credit history. So it's important that we pay things on time. That rolls right into payment history. There is a historical long-term view of our payment history, whether those payments were on time, whether they were late, whether they were derogatory. Those are all important things for lenders to see on your credit report. And really, with so many of these, one of the most important things we can do for our credit score and for our credit history is pay on time. Pay the full amount on time. So maybe you've never seen your credit report before. I hope you have. If you have pulled your credit report before, I'd love for you to put into the chat just a 1. And if you've never pulled your credit report before, you can put into the chat a 2. That way we kind of know who has and who hasn't. Okay. I'm seeing all 1s. Great job, everybody. You've taken the first step here, so that's wonderful to see. And maybe if you haven't just yet, this is your first opportunity to do so. You can check your credit report on a yearly basis for free through annualcreditreport.com. Annualcreditreport.com is the only source authorized by federal law to give you your credit report for free. Does that mean that we can't go see our credit report on other websites? No, but we know this one is safe and this one is required to give it to us for free. This does have annual in the name. With annual credit report, you say, okay, once a year we can do that. Well, the great news here is that during COVID, they have allowed us to view our credit report once a week for free from each of the 3 bureaus. Do you need to go look at your credit report once a week? It probably won't change much week to week. I normally recommend about once every 3 months pulling that credit report, seeing if there's any red flags that you see on there that may be errors, or making sure that it's all up to date, all of your payment history is exactly like you've paid. And then I love this question I see in the chat, does pulling my credit report lower my credit score? No, it does not. Pulling your credit report for educational purposes to educate yourself on what's on there does not lower your score or impact it in any way. That is one of the great things about educating yourself by your credit, is that you can do this for free and it has no impact on your credit score. I wanted to take a look at a sample credit report that you can see from the lender side of things. So this is what we can see on the lender side. So someone has come to us and they say, I would like a loan, and we have a process that we go through to look at their credit report and their history. So this is someone that's come to us and they have this credit card with Harvard University Employees Credit Union. And so this is what we see. We see their credit limit right here, and then this is their payment history. That C, it doesn't mean like ABC average kind of thing. This means that they're current. That means that they've paid on this account the amount specified current on every single month that they've had this card. That's wonderful to see. So that's really great. And we're glad to know that they've been paying on time. So that is a tick mark for a really good job on them. Credit limit with that 5,500, a good credit limit. But here we see what could be a problem, the high balance. High balance. The high balance means that at some point in time, they spent $5,429 on their card within 1 month. The reason why this could be a red flag for lenders is because the credit limit over here isn't too much higher than that high balance. And lenders like for folks to spend about 30% or less of their credit limit per month. This just shows that someone can probably pay back that amount. With that high balance, you know, they may be putting too much money on this card and they're not able to pay it back. So that could be something that could be viewed as not so great. And it looks like too that their current balance over here is still quite high for their credit limit. So it's important to see these things and to know how lenders are looking at it. So this is another part of the credit report. We see here that this is a collection agency that has sent in this part of the report. And then it says Comcast. So Comcast is a utility company, right? This is a cable company. We get our internet from them. So why are they on a credit report? And this is because this bill was sent into collections. This $310 bill was sent to collections, and that can be extremely frustrating. I don't know if you've ever lived with roommates and maybe you moved out and you expected them to pay the last bill and that didn't happen. That's exactly what happened with this person because they would have paid off the $310. They just had no idea that that was what was left on their account until they looked at their credit report. And unfortunately, this is now seriously past due. You'll see here that it's derogatory. So it's delinquent. This really isn't great. We don't want that. But what this person did was that they paid off this amount and they were able to finally, hopefully get this off of their credit report. But that is so important that if you're living with other folks, that you're making sure that all of your bills are up to date and current. This is how long different parts of our report are on there for periods of time. So you can see that open accounts in good standing, that stays on there forever. That's a great thing. We want those good standing accounts stayed on there. And closed accounts in good standing. So let's say that recently I closed a car loan. That's going to stay on there for 10 years so that way they'll be able to see, okay, she paid off that loan. And that's a good thing. I paid it on time, did all the stuff I was supposed to do. So that will, you know, help me when lenders see, okay, yeah, she can pay off a loan. That's a good thing. And then some of the not so great things do stay on our account for about 7 years. And then credit inquiries. So let's say that you are interested in getting a new credit card, but you're denied. That will stay on your account for about 2 years. This is a great question. How do the credit bureaus know when it's for educational purposes versus for getting a loan or other reasons? They know this through a process between the soft pull and a hard pull. And so when you're doing it for educational purposes, that's called a soft pull, whereas when a lender pulls your credit report, that would be through a hard pull. And so they're just set up a little bit differently. They know whether you're a lender or whether you're a person trying to learn for educational purposes. So that's good news there, is that they kind of have those set apart. So how do you dispute errors on your credit report? One of the reasons we recommend checking in on your credit report is because there can be human errors. People can put in an accidental different number for a social security number. They could possibly, you know, put somebody's name in there and it links up to your social security number somehow. So the first thing that I recommend doing is contacting the lender. That's the thing in the middle that you'll see here. This is just to make sure that they have recorded all of your payments. And really, I really recommend keeping receipts of all of your payments, whether that be through online banking, which I know where a lot of mine are. And I just think it's really important that you have your receipts of when these payments do go out so that if there are any errors, they can be corrected based on those receipts. If the lender isn't able to help you, contacting the credit bureau is the next step. The dispute must be in writing if you believe that there is an error on your credit report, and the bureau has 30 days to begin investigating that error. There are sample letters that you can use on consumer.ftc.gov if you believe that there's an error on your credit report. They have good sample letters there to kind of follow along with. But the main thing to see on this page is following up. It's important that we kind of take that next step and say, you know, it's been a couple weeks, haven't heard from anyone. Let me just reach out and say, hey, just wanted to check in. How are things going? Has it been removed from our credit report? Make sure you're checking on that credit report too. Now during COVID all the way till April 2022, we can get that weekly. So if there's a dispute or an error on there, you can look to see if it's been taken off. But just make sure that you're following up. So this is a situation no one wants to be in. Nobody wants to be in a situation where their information is compromised, but if you do end up in this situation, these are some steps to take. The first is a fraud alert. A fraud alert really is good to do if you believe somebody possibly could have your information. You don't know for sure, but it's a possibility. A fraud alert notifies any of the lenders that you work with that they need to go through extra steps to verify your identity. You can still get credit under a fraud alert. They just have to go through extra steps. And this lasts for 1 year, 1 calendar year. It is free to set up, so you don't have to pay to have this service. It's free to set up, but you do need to contact each of the credit bureaus to have this set up. Whereas a credit freeze is on indefinitely. So this happens, this is really for folks who know that their information has been taken and they need to put a credit freeze on their account. The credit freeze does not allow lenders to lend to you without a PIN number. And hopefully you are the only person that has that PIN number. And so you need to contact the bureaus to set up that PIN number, and it lasts until you ask for it to be lifted. And so this way, no one can get into your accounts. No one can get money to be lent to that money unless they have that PIN number. And this lasts until you ask for it to be lifted. So I'm going to pass it off to Migdalia to speak a little bit more about managing credit scores.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everyone for all the great questions that are coming in. Please continue to submit those questions through the questions panel, and we will do our best to get through all of them. So now that we have a better understanding of what exactly is the credit report, let's get into the credit score. Like Sarah said, the credit report information, sort of like the information on your high school or college transcript, giving general information, but then you have the grade point average, and that's essentially sort of like a credit score, and that's what I'm going to focus on. But before we get into really how you can improve your credit score, what goes into it, let's all make sure we're on the same page as to what exactly is a credit score. A credit score is not managed by the credit bureaus. And I know that could be a little bit tricky, so I just want to, I'll rephrase that. You have 3 different credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And then you have 2 separate companies, separate entities, FICO Score and Vantage Score. And those are the ones that will independently manage our credit scores. And then to make things a little bit trickier, you have FICO and Vantage, and then you have credit scores for each of the bureaus, meaning I could have, not I could, I do, we all do, we have a FICO TransUnion score, a FICO Experian, a FICO Equifax, and then you have a Vantage FICO, a Vantage Equifax, Vantage TransUnion, or a Vantage Experian. So this is why we have multiple credit scores. We really say, what's your credit score? But really you have multiple credit scores based off of the bureau and based off of the company that manages that credit score for you. Now, what exactly is a good credit score? What is higher versus lower? Really, the higher the credit score ultimately is going to be most beneficial. As Sarah showed in the beginning example, a lower credit score usually will cost you more because your interest rate will be higher on products. A higher credit score, on the other hand, gives you access to lower rates. Now, what if you do have a score that's a little bit lower? We don't want anyone to feel discouraged. If you're not looking to borrow money in the immediate future, that may not impact your finances day to day, and you can always work to build up your credit score. And I did get a question, what score is too high? There really isn't something like too high. The range is anywhere from 300 to 850. If you have an 850, you essentially have a perfect credit score, or anything really above 720, but even above 800, you're in the top tier, which is going to be most beneficial for you. Now, what exactly goes into our credit score? We did get a couple of questions about credit inquiries and such, so we'll be able to address those here. When we think of credit score, sometimes it seems a little bit more complicated because we're thinking like really doesn't sort of make sense. You have this outside company, there's this magical number. How are they doing it? So I'd like for us to all think, what if you had to lend money to Sarah or myself? Sarah or me, you know very little about us, but let's say that you pulled our credit report and you had information that shows that Sarah pays her bills on time every month and I pay my bills, not every month, I skip a month or two. And by bills, I specifically am speaking to credit bills. So maybe it's a credit card, maybe it's a student loan. Let me know in the questions if you would lend to Sarah or Migdalia. If you had to choose who to lend to, would you lend to Sarah, who pays on time every month, or would you lend to me and I'm paying 30 days behind, 60 days behind? Who would you lend to? Would you lend to Sarah or Migdalia? Okay, it looks like Sarah is winning. Okay, a lot of Sarahs. Oh, thank you. I saw one person that would lend to me. Thank you. I appreciate that. So a lot of people put Sarah, and sort of makes sense. When you are a lender, you want to lend to people that are going to make payments. There are sometimes that they may lend to you. So someone may lend to me, but that person may charge me more money because they may not know when they're going to get their money for me. So there's more risk. That's why the payment history you see here is 35% of your credit score, meaning that if you're paying your bills late, and by bills, I'm going to always say bills, but specifically I'm speaking to credit card bills, loans, student loans, mortgages, etc. Utilities as well, and medical, if they were to be paid too late, then they go to collections. But mostly I'm talking of money that you have borrowed. Assuming that you're paying that late every month and now you start paying it on time, that's going to help you bring up your credit score. If you're in a situation that you have been paying your bills on time every month, continue to do so. That doesn't mean that your credit score will improve drastically because you've already been taking good financial steps. Amounts owed means if I have a credit limit of $1,000, it is ideal, it's recommended that I have a balance of 30% or less. Now that balance of 30% can be zero. So you don't have to carry a balance month to month. You can have a balance of zero, meaning I pay my credit card full in a month every month. I don't have to carry a balance. So I can still have a good credit score. I don't have to have debt to have a good credit score. I do have to, however, use my credit card. One of the questions that I get often is, well, if I do have a credit limit, let's say of $1,000, and I'm putting $900 on it every month, but I pay it off in full every month, does that matter? And it does, because you are then at 90% of credit utilization, which has a negative impact on your credit score. Because remember, the sort of ideal number is at 30% or less, meaning try to keep that balance at all times at 300 or less. For some of us, that may mean we pay off our credit cards a little bit more frequently because we don't necessarily know when we are being reported to the credit bureaus. And the other part, when Sarah showed us the credit report, sample credit report, you can't tell if that individual paid their credit card in full every month. What we can tell is what their balance is. And we have to remember that credit is a snapshot of your credit situation at that moment. So if as of today, I have $900 balance, that just shows that I have a 90% utilization if my credit limit is $1,000. it doesn't show if I can pay for it tomorrow. It doesn't show if I can pay for it today. So you always want to have your credit, specifically your credit snapshot, be a good reflection of where you are. The other pieces are important, but really you have 65% of our credit score right here. Just that payment history, which is paying those bills on time. I always try to pay mine at least a day or two before. That way, life happens. I'm less likely to pay them late, or set up automatic payments if you can. I will recommend, if you set up automatic payments, do those automatic payments and still look at your credit card statement or whatever other statement you are paying, because you don't want to just assume that, okay, I paid it off. You always want to verify, make sure there's no scam or anything that's not accurate on your statement. And then the other percent is amounts owed, and this applies to the individual line of credit. So that's either your individual mortgage, individual car loan, student loan, credit card, and the aggregate amount as well. And when you pull your credit report, that information will be in a chart, so it'll be very clear for you to see. The other pieces are important, however, not as high, smaller percentage. Length of credit history, meaning that the longer you've had, the longer the average of your accounts, the better it is for you. Does that mean I should not close my oldest account? It will depend. And Sarah and myself will share with you a couple of resources, specifically GreenPath. This is about the time we get a lot of individual questions. Well, my situation is this, my situation is that, what should I do? We partner with GreenPath Financial Wellness, and they are accredited credit counselors. So they can actually pull up your credit report. It is for educational purposes, as Sarah mentioned earlier, so it does not impact your credit score. And because it is for educational purposes, they'll just literally walk you through your credit report, and they'll tell you what you can do to improve your specific credit score. So if you want to learn a little bit more about GreenPath, you can go to hbcu.org/greenpath, and we do have a slide as well where we'll share their information up in the upcoming slides. But the length of credit history, going back to that common question, should I close my account? It depends. For some of you, if your oldest account was 10 years ago and you opened another account 1 year ago, yes, if you close that account from 10 years ago, that's going to have an impact. You're going to lose that history. But if you had an account 10 years ago and an account 8 years, 5 years, if you've had more a portfolio, more credit file, that's going to have less of an impact. So it really will depend on your specific situation. Then you have credit mix, and this means the type of loan that you have or type of credit. There are two different types of credit categories. There's installment loans, which means I have a loan and I pay it off monthly, and I usually pay about the same amount or variable amount. But I have, let's say, a $10,000 loan. Every month I pay $200 until that loan is paid off. I pay it off in installments. That's most common. Most people do really well with installment debt because you can budget for it. And then you have revolving, and revolving means credit card. It can vary from month to month. I know for myself, I have a couple of friends that are getting married this year, so my credit card bill will be a little bit higher with some traveling expenses and gifts and such. So my monthly balance will be higher during the summer months than it was at the beginning of the year when we were mostly staying at home. So it changes, and that's called revolving. Do you need to go out and get credit card if you don't have one, or do you need to go out and get an installment loan if you don't have one? If you have a good score, you don't need to go out and get additional credit just to get additional credit. That may not impact your score, especially if you already have a good score. And then new credit, which we spoke about, which is essentially when you apply for new loans, and this is what someone had asked earlier, well, how do they know if it's educational? It's really either educational or you're applying for a loan. And if you're applying for a loan, that is a hard inquiry known as a new credit versus a soft inquiry, which is just for educational purposes. A couple of questions that came in. When loan rates are advertised, are those rates based on a FICO score of 720 and higher? How can the consumer get a better loan rate? Thank you for that question. It will depend on the lender. Typically, you can read the fine print, and not typically, they have to actually provide the fine print as to what is that advertised rate, who is eligible for it. depending on the product, it usually is, the lowest rate is usually the one advertised for those that have the highest credit score. However, every lender does it a little bit different, and it sometimes is based off of the product itself. Meaning I could be Migdalia Credit Union and decide anyone that has an 800 will get 1% on a car loan. But if you have 800, you'll get 5% on a student loan. So I could choose what that tier is. So it does depend. There are some lenders, I'll speak for us at the credit union. If you're a member, you're more than welcome to. Even if you're not, you can always give us a call and we can give you an idea of roughly what your rate could be based off of your credit score. We can't guarantee it because of course you have to do a credit pull, but we will usually tell our community what those rates are. And it also depends on some of the products. For example, at the credit union, if you qualify for a mortgage, then you're going to get the same rate across the board. Because mortgages are such a high debt, we chose not to do tiered pricing or credit-based lending on that specific product. So anyone that qualifies for our mortgage, they'll get the same rate. And actually our car loan too as well is now at 2.9 across the board. So it does depend on the product, but you should check with the lender since every lender is different. Another question that came in, how do I clear charge off from my credit report? So actually GreenPath is a great resource. I would give GreenPath a call. They can actually walk you through what to do. And we also have on our blog a couple of articles as well on what that process is like. Another question that came in, how does the score change if you apply but don't actually take it? So that essentially, anytime you apply for a loan, regardless of if you borrow the loan or not, or the credit card, any product, that would be a new inquiry. So that is that new credit, that would be that 10%. So it doesn't matter if you borrow it or not. That's another reason too. If you're not quite in the market for it, then I would recommend not applying. Sometimes just hold off until you're ready to. You can shop around during a 2-week period where if you apply for multiple loans, it'll count as one inquiry, assuming it's for the same product type. Meaning if I'm applying for a car loan, I could go to 3 different lenders and apply for 3 car loans within a 2-week period, and it's usually counted as one inquiry because I'm shopping around for that specific product. But if I looked for a student loan, a mortgage, and a car loan, those are 3 different products, so it doesn't matter if it was within a 2-week period, they would still be 3 different inquiries. I'm getting a lot of good questions here specific to some debt that you may have, that folks have on their credit report that is not accurate, that they need to change it. So definitely going to encourage you to contact GreenPath. And we also do have on our blog a couple of articles. It's a little bit more detailed on how to get it taken off, but essentially there is a process and the GreenPath counselors can walk you through it. And if that lender or whoever is responsible for putting that debt, whether it's medical, if they don't respond within 30 days, the credit bureaus have to take it off. So there are a couple of different processes in place, but I would highly encourage you to contact GreenPath. It's a free resource. They're available 6 days a week, 10 p.m. on certain days, available Saturday as well. And once you talk to someone, that counselor can be your counselor in the future. So if you need to call them in the future, they'll be available for you. What I talked about in the previous slide was the FICO score. This is the Vantage Score model. And I want to emphasize these are models. It's not 100% that if you do a credit inquiry, it'll be 10%. I applied for a credit not too long ago, and it didn't drop my score by 10%. It's more of a general guideline that they give us. Their true algorithm, it's their algorithm, and it depends on the model. So they're not going to share that, but this is just good general practice of what they do. The Vantage Score, as you can see here, payment history has the most impact, and then that credit limit used as well. We have a couple of different sample credit scores. Keep in mind, this is something that I pulled as a lender, so it's going to look different than when you pull your own credit report. And I want to point out a couple of different things. One is it's a FICO Score 8. So when you pull out your credit report, whether it's through online banking, whether it's through your credit card company, they're going to tell you your score and where they pulled it from. For anyone that is a HUCU member, you can actually get your FICO score. It's something that you can go through online banking and just add it as a widget. And for those of you that don't have the credit union, check with your primary financial institution. Most financial institutions do this. If you commonly use the mobile app, I would still log into online banking. Sometimes you have to activate certain features such as your credit score through online banking before it's available through the mobile app. But here we see the FICO score, the model, the score 8 here, and we see the range. This individual has a 488, and then you're always going to have score factor description. You're never just going to have the score. The reason for that is they're going to give you some general information. Now, sometimes the information will be more helpful than others. Here, this person has a 488, a lot of helpful information. Delinquency is recent, meaning they haven't paid, and that's on 3 of their accounts, 3 of their factor descriptions, I should say. And they also have account balance too high. Essentially, this is that 30%, meaning they have balances over that 30% of that credit line. So those are very helpful in this situation. When you get a little bit higher on the score, in this case, we have a 656, information is still helpful. It's telling me a little bit more about some things that I can do, but then it's telling me some things that may not be as helpful. No recent revolving balance. Does that mean I should go and get a new credit card? Not necessarily, because if this individual worked on the other pieces, that 656 would increase, and then it wouldn't be as helpful. In fact, here you have someone that has a very high credit score and they still have something. And I've seen people with close to 850s and they still will say something. So just keep in mind that the lower your score, the more that the score factor descriptors are helpful. The higher the score, they're going to have something, they're always going to say something, and it's never going to say, good job, you're done. We have a couple of different options here to improve your credit score. Credit, just like money, it's personal, so it's going to depend on your situation. If you don't have credit and you're trying to establish credit, there are a couple ways you can do it. You can have a secured credit card, which means you put a certain amount in an account, let's say a savings account, and a lender will give you the amount, a credit card for the amount that you've put into that savings account. So if I have $500 in a savings, they might give me a secured credit card for $500. Why is it secured? Well, because if I don't pay my credit card bill, I won't have access to that $500. They have access to it. They're able to take that money instead. There are other ways too that some secure cards work, but that's generally how they work. And then there's the unsecured credit card, which is how most of us know credit cards. There's nothing backing up that credit card, meaning that if I don't pay back my credit card debt, they're not taking away the purchases that I made with it. Depending on your financial institution, some may make it a little bit, some may not be able to lend to you right away, so you may have to do a secured card. For us at the credit union, because we are created for the Harvard community, including all of you at different teaching hospitals, we do have unsecured credit cards that we help, especially our international populations and our students and residents. We help them build credit history. There are special loans that are available as well. Not every financial institution will offer it. Most of them will probably just do a unsecured credit card. And then the biggest one, which we'll see on the next slide, is really going to be that Green Path Financial Counseling. Oh, I apologize, it's not on the next slide. I'm a little, I know it's coming, but it's going to be that one-on-one financial counseling. And it is something that we reserve for our members. However, for those that attended this presentation, you'll have access to Green Path because we do believe in the importance of Green Path and we want everyone in our community to have access. So yes, we would love for you to be a member. That was someone that's asked. They're not a member, wanted to know if they can still use Green Path. We'd love to have you as a member, but you're not required to use Green Path. We believe in everyone's financial health and want to make sure that everyone has access to Green Path, especially those of you that are coming to our presentations. Now, I'm going to go very quickly on just some things about choosing a credit card. just because, especially now with things changing with COVID, you may see a lot of different credit card offers. And we actually have one recently, and Sarah, if you don't mind just putting the link so folks can have it, and you can actually see on our website how to compare. But one of the things that we want you to see is how to compare different credit cards. So there's going to be a chart on every credit card offer that's going to give you information that will look the same. So if I am comparing a credit card from company A, credit card from company B, C, yes, I want to look at the rewards, but this is really what I want to look at. I want to see what the APR is, there are different types of APRs. I want to see what the different fees are. That's going to help so that I know what the cost of that credit card is, especially if I'm going to carry a balance. And most of us don't go into it thinking we're going to carry a balance. Of course not. But life happens, and if you are carrying a balance, it's just good for you to know what your options are. And on the next one, you'll be able to see what it looks like for the fees. And again, all credit card companies have to disclose this to you. If it's not easy to find on their website, maybe a little bit of an indicator. I always say compare different cards, just get in the habit. Don't just look at the rewards. There are so many different pieces of information. I did see a question that came in about auto loans. Sarah did put information about our credit cards, but yes, if for those that someone asked, can you lease vehicles through the credit union or only purchase? So you can finance, specifically, you can finance and leases and auto loans and purchases, and we can send you that information, or if you go onto our website, we have information about car loans there as well. For those of you that are maybe getting too many offers, either credit cards, auto loans, you can opt out. You can choose to go to optoutprescreen.com. Just be mindful that if you do this, you are going to not get offers. So if you don't get offers and you're looking for a product, it just means you need to be a little bit more proactive. And here is the slide that I keep saying it's coming. This is our Green Path Financial Wellness slide. Essentially, this is the service that we're talking about, that they offer free credit counseling. They also do federal student loan counseling as well. This is something that it's a great member benefit, but we've extended it to our community. So if you're not a member and are interested, we encourage you to contact them. It is free. We pay for it so you don't have to, and it's available to you. And then for those of you that are members, it's available to you and anyone in your household as well. And we do have a blog, and on our blog, we have a lot of different articles. We have articles, a huge series on credit cards, credit scores, choosing a loan, what ways to improve your credit, how to dispute charges. I know that question came up a couple of times. So we do have that on our blog. And if you're interested, you can subscribe. We love getting questions throughout our presentations. We take a lot of those questions and make them into blog articles. We do about 3 a week. So I'm going to just turn it over. We have a couple more slides to go over, and I'm just going to turn it over to Chris from EAP, who's going to give you a little bit more information before Sarah and I share our final slides.
Thank you so much, Migdalia, and thank you so much, Sarah. This was fantastic. And in EAP, we always appreciate our being able to partner for these webinars and put them on. So again, just want to take up a couple quick moments so you all know about the EAP benefit that you have available to you. And I'm Chris Gibbo-Felix, a counselor with the Employee Assistance Program. So just know that we are a free, voluntary, and confidential resource for all employees of Mass General Brigham, as well as household family members as well. We help with a wide variety of things, and certainly financial is always right at the top as well. So for any questions about resources for a wide variety of things, EAP would be a great resource to reach out to. We can help find what the right resources are, and certainly Harvard Credit Union and Green Path are definitely among those that we'll refer to. But you can see we help with a variety of things as well. So it's not just specifically related to financial or one area. Work, life, health, well-being quite broadly on a short-term basis. We can be of support for. See our phone number at the bottom, and we're always available as well. So anything that's ever pressing, just so you can always speak to an on-call counselor. That's 24/7. You can also check out our website for a variety of resources. Also covers everything work-life health well-being related, and you can also request an appointment online as well, and that's at eap.partners.org, and see what our upcoming webinars are as well. So again, appreciate you all being here, and I'll stay on as well in case there's any questions about EAP too, but I'm sure that there will be many questions for Sarah and Migdalia as well.
And thank you. And we're going to put the survey in the chat as well, but opening it up for those that may have questions. We wanted to leave more than enough time. I do want to say a quick disclaimer about tax advice, investment. One of the things that Sarah and I really try to mention is going to the professionals and looking at your specific information. Even though Sarah and I are knowledgeable in these different topics, we don't know your specific situation. So it's always good to speak to a professional, such as someone at GreenPath. And I did get some clarification about the lease question. So we do lease buyouts, but not leases. So I just wanted to clarify that for the individual that asked about the auto loans. So we do lease buyouts, but not specific leases. I hope that was helpful, and I apologize for not being clear about that earlier. And I don't see any additional questions at the moment, but I do, as I wait for questions, I want to remind folks that you're all members of our community. If you're interested in joining, you're more than welcome to go onto our website, and just know that if you are a member, you can access all of our services regardless of where you are located. We have members that are international. We have members that are the West Coast. So everything you can do with us, you can do remotely as well. I don't see any other questions that are coming in. So I thank Chris and I thank EAP. And just know that we do have a couple of other presentations coming up. You can register for those at hgcu.org/EAP. And I hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today and for all your great questions.